This presentation will be on the Temple Mount, also known as Haram al-Sharif. I chose the Temple Mount because it is a space that is considered sacred by many different religions, making it somewhat unique. Not only that, but the Temple Mount is still incredibly relevant in today's cultural, religious, and even political landscape. The Temple Mount is considered sacred by Judaism and Islam. It's also considered sacred by Christians, but the main focus of this presentation will be Judaism and Islam, as it is more sacred to them than any other religion. Both religions are monotheistic, but Judaism is an ethnic religion, whereas Islam is a universalizing religion. The Temple Mount is located in Jerusalem, which is at about the center of Israel. It's also really only a mountain on the south and east sides with a valley line at the bottom. On the other two sides, the north and west side, it is level with the rest of the city. The Jews believe that the Temple Mount is the site where God told Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac. He nearly did so before God stepped in at the last second and told him not to. It is also the site of the first and second temples, which were built by Jews and later destroyed. The Jews believe that when the Messiah comes down, they will build a third temple. They aren't sure exactly where the first and second temples were located, so they are forbidden from praying at the Temple Mount. Instead, they have to pray at the Western Wall, also known as the Wailing Wall. The wall is part of the second temple's outer courtyard, which has stood all these years, even though the temple itself was destroyed. The Muslims call Temple Mount Haram al-Sharif. They believe it is the site where Muhammad ascended to heaven and received many of the main tenets of Islam from Allah. The Dome on the Rock is the site where they believe Muhammad rose to heaven, and the Al-Aqsa Mosque is where he arrived when he first came to Jerusalem. Muslims gained control of the site in about 1187 and held it for nearly 800 years. In 1967, Israel won the Six-Day War and gained the territory of Jerusalem. Soon after the war, the Israelis and Muslims reached an agreement on the Temple Mount. Jews could visit the site but could not pray there. This has led to hostilities from some members of the Jewish community, despite the fact that some Jewish religious texts forbid praying at the Temple Mount as well. The Temple Mount has also been part of the broader conflicts between Jews and Muslims in the area. Unfortunately, many experts do not see a solution that would not involve more conflict and end with either the Muslims or the Jews solely controlling the Temple Mount. One potential solution is to put the area under international control. Former Israeli Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion suggested that the area be put under international control and use it as sort of a museum for all world religions, due to the influence of so many religions in the city of Jerusalem. The two main structures on the Temple Mount are the Dome on the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which were both built by Muslims. The Dome on the Rock is the most recognizable monument in Jerusalem. Traditionally, Muslim buildings attempt to be the most imposing and spectacular buildings in cities. The Al-Aqsa Mosque actually contains many archways, which is another typical sign of Muslim architecture. The Temple Mount has not affected the physical landscape too much. However, the valleys on the eastern and southern side are filled with old debris from where the first and second temples were destroyed. The cultural landscape is affected also by those temples, as the only remaining piece is the Western Wall. The cultural landscape also reflects the Muslim culture in the area, with the buildings of the Dome on the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque. The Temple Mount benefits from the physical landscape. It is built at one of the highest points in Jerusalem, so it stands above many of the other structures in the city. There is also a tremendous impact from the cultural landscape. Both Jews and Muslims see the Temple Mount as the site where Abraham nearly sacrificed one of his sons at God's orders. The numerous conflicts in the Temple Mount and Jerusalem as a whole have also taken their toll on the landscape throughout the centuries. The type of religion that Judaism and Islam are have also had an effect on the legacy of the Temple Mount. Judaism is an ethnic religion, which explains why the site is considered so sacred to them, despite the fact that Muslims controlled the area for so many years and Jews have only recently taken control of the area. Islam is a universalizing religion, which explains why they spread their religion to this area and created their own sacred sites here. I had always thought of sacred spaces as holy, calm, and reverent places. Researching the Temple Mount has made me rethink this and realize that the situation is often more complex. Sacred spaces are certainly considered holy, but when two religions control the same sacred space, it can become very complicated. It can cause a lot of tension, violence, and conflict. If the site is sacred to both religions in different ways, it can be hard to find common ground and even be considered sacrilegious. Sacred spaces are much more complex than they might initially seem.